You are too available. Not sometimes, not in certain situations. Structurally, fundamentally, at the level of your character, you have made yourself too easy to access, too easy to dismiss, too easy to use. You respond immediately, you agree too quickly, you show up whenever you are called, you give your time to people who have not earned it. You hand yourself over, your attention, your energy, your presence, like a man distributing flyers on a street corner. Free, unlimited, take one, take two. And then you wonder why no one values you. That is not a mystery, that is economics. What is free has no weight. What is limitless has no worth. This is not cynicism. This is the oldest law in human psychology, a law that Machiavelli understood 500 years ago, that the Stoics understood 2,000 years before that, and that the samurai encoded into their very way of dying. You have been taught that generosity is virtue, that openness is strength, that being available is being kind. That is the lie. Most men never question this. They spend their entire lives pouring themselves out freely, their time, their attention, their emotional core, and they wonder why they feel invisible, why they are taken for granted, why the people they give everything to are the first to undervalue them. By the end of this, you will not just understand scarcity. You will understand why the most powerful men in history, the ones who moved empires, shaped philosophy, and left legacies that outlasted their civilizations, were not generous with themselves. They were precise. They were selective. They were expensive. And you are going to become expensive too. Today, that changes. Here is what you were told: be open, be accessible, be the person who always shows up. Walls are weakness, boundaries are selfishness. The man who gives everything is the man who is loved. That is the lie. Niccolo Machiavelli, dismissed by the comfortable as cruel, understood by the powerful as honest, wrote something that has disturbed readers for 5 centuries. He observed that men who are too easy to reach, too willing to please, too desperate to be liked, are not respected. They are consumed. He was not describing tyrants. He was describing a principle of human nature so consistent, so universal, that it appears in every culture and every era without exception. We do not value what we can have without effort. We value what costs us something to obtain. This is not a character flaw in other people. It is not ingratitude or shallowness. It is the deep architecture of how the human mind assigns meaning. The brain does not calculate value in isolation. It calculates value in relation to cost. If something requires nothing to obtain, the brain registers it as worth nothing. You have been pouring yourself out for free, and the people around you, not out of malice but out of simple neurological wiring, have come to price you accordingly. That is the lie you are living. Now we build the truth. Pillar 1, the samurai's death becoming expensive before the battle begins. The samurai of feudal Japan practiced something that terrified everyone who did not understand it, and freed everyone who did. Before entering battle, before leaving the gate, before the sword was even drawn, they died. Not literally, philosophically, completely. The practice was called Shinaimano Gyurui, the frenzy of one who has already died. The samurai would sit in stillness before combat and mentally release every attachment to survival, to outcome, to what others thought of him, to whether he lived or died in the next hour. He surrendered his life before anyone could take it from him. And something extraordinary happened when he stood up. He became untouchable. Not physically, he could still be cut, but psychologically, he could not be manipulated. He could not be threatened. He could not be leveraged. Because the thing his enemies could use against him, the fear of loss, was already gone. A man with nothing to lose cannot be controlled. Now understand what this has to do with you. Your availability, your constant presence, your immediate responses, your eagerness to please is driven by attachment. Attachment to approval. Attachment to being liked. Attachment to the fear that if you pull back, if you become selective, if you become expensive, people will leave. The samurai understood that this attachment is the enemy, not the person you fear losing, the attachment itself. Die before the battle. Release the approval. Stop needing to be valued by people who have not earned the right to value you. When you do this, something in your energy changes in a way that cannot be faked or performed. You become the man who cannot be threatened, and that man is expensive by nature. Pillar 2, Marcus Aurelius and the Inner Citadel, the architecture of inaccessibility. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth. He commanded the largest army in the known world. He governed 50 million people. Emperors before him had drowned in that power, become drunk on access, on flattery, on the endless supply of people willing to give them whatever they wanted. Marcus chose a different architecture. In his private journals, the meditations, never meant to be published, written for no audience but himself, he returned again and again to one discipline. He called it the Inner Citadel, the fortified center of the self that nothing external could breach. He did not give himself freely, not his attention, not his reaction, not his emotional interior. These were guarded, rationed, reserved. And because they were rare, because accessing the genuine interior of Marcus Aurelius required effort, required worthiness, required something real from the other person, those who reached him felt the weight of the encounter. Compare this to you. You give your reactions to everyone. A stranger's comment online disturbs your entire afternoon. An offhand remark from a coworker occupies your mind for hours. You are emotionally available to the entire world simultaneously, which means you are emotionally present to no one, including yourself. The inner citadel is not coldness. It is not cruelty. It is the decision that not everyone deserves access to the real you, that your interior life is not a public park. It is a private garden, and entry requires something worthy of it. Build the walls, guard the gate. The man inside is expensive, and he knows it. Pillar 3, Zhuangzi's empty boat, the power of real indifference. The Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi told a story. A man is rowing his boat across a river. Another boat drifts toward him out of the fog. He shouts a warning, no response. He shouts again. The boat keeps coming. He prepares to scream in anger at the careless fool steering toward him. Then the boat arrives and it is empty. No one is steering it. It drifted on its own. And the man's rage collapses instantly. Gone. How can you be angry at an empty boat? Zhuangzi's point was this. Most of the pain, most of the neediness, most of the desperate hunger for validation that drives men to make themselves too available is a reaction to boats that were always empty, to people who were never truly there, to approval that was never real. When you stop needing the boat to have a captain, when you stop needing people to see you, validate you, respond to you on your timeline, you become the empty boat. You drift on your own current, calm, unsteerable, indifferent. And here is the paradox that Zhuangzi knew and that every great teacher since has confirmed. The man who needs nothing from you is the man you cannot stop thinking about. The person who does not require your approval has your complete attention. Not performed indifference, not cold games or deliberate silence as a manipulation tactic. Real indifference, rooted in a real philosophy, rooted in the genuine understanding that your inner peace does not depend on external response. That is Zhuangzi's empty boat. Become it, and watch what drifts toward you. Pillar 4, the Bardo teaching dying to the cheap self. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo, is one of the most ancient and serious psychological documents ever written. On the surface, it is a guide for the dying. Underneath, it is a manual for transformation. The Bardo is the state between death and rebirth, between the old self and whatever comes next. And the teaching at its center is this: most beings in the Bardo are terrified by the dissolution of the familiar self. They cling, they grasp, they reach back toward what they were, even when what they were was the source of their suffering. The masters who understood the Bardo did not cling. They released. They let the old identity dissolve completely, not with grief, with deliberate philosophical surrender. And in that surrender, something new and more powerful could form. You are in a Bardo right now. The old version of you, the one who texts back immediately, who agrees before thinking, who softens every boundary because he fears the reaction, who is available to everyone and therefore precious to no one, that version must dissolve. Not improved, not adjusted, dissolved. You are not trying to become a slightly better version of the man who makes himself too cheap. You are letting that man die completely. You are sitting in the in-between, uncomfortable, uncertain, unrecognized, and trusting that what forms on the other side is something that cannot be dismissed. This is identity death before identity rebirth. The Tibetans understood it, the samurai practiced it, and you must do it now. Let the cheap version of yourself die. The expensive one is already waiting. Pillar 5, the Machiavellian calculus, how to actually become expensive. Enough philosophy, now the weapon. Machiavelli was not a monster. He was a diagnostician. He looked at human nature without the comfort of illusion and described what he saw with merciless accuracy. And what he saw was this: the prince who is feared is safer than the prince who is loved, not because fear is virtuous, but because love based on nothing is unreliable. He was describing the mechanics of perceived value, and those mechanics apply to every domain of your life. Your time is a currency. Right now, you are spending it like a man with an infinite supply. You are not. Every hour you spend on people and things that do not deserve your level is an hour taken from the people and purposes that do. The man who guards his time carefully signals, without words, without performance, that his time has weight. Your opinion is a currency. When you share it constantly, freely with anyone who asks and many who don't, it becomes ambient noise. When you speak rarely, specifically, and only when you have something real to say, people lean in. They listen differently. They remember it. Your presence is a currency. The man who is everywhere is felt nowhere. Show up fully and selectively. Leave before the energy drops. Let people experience the absence of you so they understand the value of you. Your emotional reaction is a currency. Stop spending it on people who have not earned it. Stop letting the careless words of others purchase your internal peace. Guard your reaction the way Marcus Aurelius guarded his inner citadel, not with coldness, but with sovereignty. This is not manipulation. This is not a game. This is the correct philosophical relationship between a man and his own resources. You are finite, your energy is finite, your attention is finite, your life is finite. Spend it like it matters, because it does. The identity shift, you are not adjusting, you are becoming. Here is what most men miss when they try to implement everything we have discussed. They treat it as behavior, as tactics, as a set of rules to follow. Do not respond immediately, speak less, leave early, guard your reactions. And it works for a week, maybe two. Then the old pull comes back, the hunger for approval, the anxiety of silence, the fear of being seen as cold or arrogant or difficult, and they collapse back into availability, back into cheapness. Because they were trying to change what they do without changing who they are. You are not a man who is learning to respond less. You are a man who no longer needs to respond immediately because his inner life does not depend on external confirmation. You are not a man who is learning to say no. You are a man for whom certain requests are simply not compatible with what he is building. You are not a man who is performing scarcity. You are a man who is genuinely rare because he has done the inner work that most men will never do. Say it plainly to yourself tonight, before sleep, in the quiet where no one can hear you. I am not trying to become expensive. I am recognizing that I already am, and I am done pricing myself otherwise. Hold that, let it settle into the bones. This is not a decision you make once. It is the man you wake up as every morning. The man on the other side. He walks into a room and does not immediately announce himself. He does not fill silences out of nervousness. He does not check whether people approve of his presence. He is simply there, complete, settled, unhurried. People notice, they cannot always say why. They call it confidence or charisma or presence. But you will know what it actually is. It is scarcity made physical. It is the embodied understanding that he is not for everyone and that this is not a flaw. It is a feature. His relationships are fewer and deeper. His words carry more weight because he spends them carefully. His time is treated differently by him and by everyone around him because the signal he sends is consistent and clear. I am expensive, not arrogant, expensive, There is a difference, and if you cannot feel it, then we are probably not for each other. Be memento mori. The clock is not paused while you think about it. The Tibetan masters were not being poetic when they spoke of impermanence. Every hour you spend being cheap with yourself is an hour taken from the life you are capable of building. Marcus Aurelius, governing an empire, watching friends die, fighting wars on every border, still found the discipline to sit alone each morning and write, to return to his philosophy, to choose again and again who he was going to be that day. He did not wait until life was easier. He did not wait until conditions were perfect. He made the decision inside the chaos, inside the difficulty, inside the mess of being alive. And so must you. You do not have time to keep being free. You have an empire to build inside yourself first, then in the world. And empires are not built by men who give themselves away. Don't be free, be expensive. If something in this landed, if a part of you recognized yourself and felt the discomfort of that recognition, then you are not like the others who left in the first 30 seconds. What you receive today is the philosophy I can share publicly, the surface layer. There are conversations about dark psychology, power, and the architecture of the self that this platform will not allow me to have openly. Those conversations exist behind one button. Click join, step into what cannot be shown here. Most people will not. That is the point. Subscribe if you haven't. The next video will go deeper, but only for those who are ready to go there.